Welcome back. You're still with us on Reporter's Diary. It is unfair to blame the GST for the current economic slowdown. That's the word coming in from Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18's Timsi Jaipuria, the Revenue Secretary said that the new tax regime has resulted in good growth till about 2 months back at much lower rates. He is also hopeful that GST collections will pick up from next month onwards. Timsi Jaipuria is here with the key takeaways of that interaction she had with the Revenue Secretary. Timsi, over to you.
Well, that's right. Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey, in a detailed interview to CNBC-TV18, has said that it is unfair to blame GST for the ongoing slowdown. Rather, the government has seen very healthy results when it comes to the initial 2 years of GST. 20+ states have recorded a compounded annual growth in revenue of about 14% plus growth, and that is a very healthy sign. Also, not just that, the Revenue Secretary has said that government is constantly taking measures to augment revenue collections. A committee of officers has been formed which is also looking into various details, and it could also give suggestions and recommendations on rates. Not just that, when it comes to the overall idea of compensation cess kitty not having enough money to compensate states, Revenue Secretary said that the council has been apprised with the matter, and it is the council which is the appropriate authority to take a view on what should be the future course of action given that the funds are not enough. Not just that, he also said that in the last 2 months, sectors such as cement, auto, steel are underperforming. Also, imports have seen a decline, which is leading to a declining trend in revenue collections. And he expects that revenue collections will pick up soon because GST collections are a reflection of the economic health. Not just that, on getting ATF and natural gas under the ambit of GST, he said very clearly if there is a fresh reference that gets referred to the the council is ready to take a fresh look. Back to you.
All right, Timsi, thank you so much for bringing us those details. Now, Chief Economic Adviser Subramanian has urged large corporates to lead the way in clearing their pending payments to micro, small and medium enterprises to kickstart the investment cycle. This even as he reiterated that the government was on its toes in responding to the needs of the economy. Speaking at an event organized by FICCI, Subramanian suggested that a boost in private investment was the need of the hour. He added that the economy needs to grow 7 to 8% to touch the $5 trillion mark by 2025.
MSMEs actually are really dependent on the cash flow cycle. And here again, I would appeal based on that the large corporates need to set the benchmark in saying if it is basically a 30-day receivable, then pay it on the 29th day or at least pay it on the 30th day. Lead the way because that will solve the liquidity problem. The exhortation to all the corporates here is to actually focus on the long run. The fundamentals of the economy have absolutely not changed at all. They remain as strong as before, which then gives enormous opportunities for corporates to be able to benefit from consumption, by driving consumption, by doing the investment that is required to be able to, again, put the economy back on that 7% plus, close to 8% growth path, which is what we need in order for us to become a $5 trillion economy by 24-25 and a $10 trillion by 2032.
A quick look at the top national headlines of the day. After a marathon 40-day hearing, the Supreme Court has reserved its judgment in the Ayodhya land dispute case. This is the second longest hearing in the history of the Supreme Court after the landmark hearing in Keshwananda Bharati case. The Enforcement Directorate today arrested former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram from Tihar jail after questioning him in connection with the alleged corruption in the INX media case. The 74-year-old leader has been at Tihar since the 5th of September. Karti, Chidambaram's son, spoke to the media after meeting his father. He termed the investigation as bogus.
Meet him twice a week, so I've come to meet him as part of my weekly visits. He's in good spirits, and whatever these procedural games are being played are only being played for political theatrics. I've always maintained this is nothing but a case of political vendetta. There are no facts. This is a bogus investigation to continue to keep a former finance minister and a former home minister in some sort of custody for alleged transactions which apparently happened in 2006 is a charade by itself.
And shifting focus to the PMC Bank fiasco, the Supreme Court has agreed to grant an urgent hearing to a petition seeking protection of the savings of over 15 lakh affected customers. The Apex Court will hear the matter on Friday. This development comes even as panic-stricken PMC Bank customers continue to hold protests outside the Esplanade Court for the second day in a row. Remember, last month, the RBI had imposed restrictions on the bank for 6 months owing to a massive underreporting of non-performing assets. Withdrawals currently are capped at 40,000 rupees. And Bajaj Auto's popular model Chetak is all set to make a comeback on Indian roads. But this time, the company has decided to launch the scooter in an all-new electric avatar. The Chetak Electric will be launched under the Urbanite EV, which is a sub-brand under Bajaj Auto. The electric scooter will be available in 2 variants, the 85 and 95-kilometer variant. The scooters will be out in the market by January next year. Remember, the company had stopped manufacturing their original Chetak scooters in 2009. My colleague Parikshit Luthra caught up with Rajiv Bajaj, Managing Director of Bajaj Auto, and began by asking him about the journey of this iconic scooter. Let's take a look.
It's also probably the first mass market product.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because I think electric vehicles will be niche for some time rather than mass. But I think the reason why people like our guest of honor today, Mr. Amitabh Kant, were so delighted with this is because we are the first, if I may say so, established large OEM that has taken the plunge into all electric.
So you felt that emotional connect with Chetak is important for your EV launch as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Jack Trout taught me marketing is a game of perceptions. You cannot change public perception. It doesn't matter whether you're a politician or a businessman. Your job is to cleverly leverage it to your advantage. So we felt that there was a very strong latent traction for Chetak, for its form, its design, for all the values that it stood for. And we said, you know, why start from scratch? We have such a priceless asset in the Chetak.
Right.
Let's build the future with it.
On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, reports suggest the European Union and the United Kingdom may announce a Brexit deal soon. More details on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Reporter's Diary. With 15 days left until Brexit is due to take place, reports suggest that the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson could be on the brink of reaching a deal. Talks between the UK and the EU restarted this morning after stretching late last night. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said that there is a glimmer of hope on reaching an agreement. UK Prime Minister Johnson too said that the talks were resuming after a constructive session, but some members of the Conservative Party have expressed public doubts about the emerging deal. CNBC's Willem Marks has the breakdown.
You've got the rump of the Conservative Party, that's Boris Johnson's party, who are very likely to vote for a deal. You have a small number of them who have traditionally voted against Brexit deals under Theresa May, and at least one of them has publicly said last night after the group met with Boris Johnson, Owen Paterson is his name, he's the former Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, that any deal that involved a border on the Irish Sea would be, quote, unacceptable. Some of those other hardliners, though, they seem to be in favour of what they call a tolerable deal. Then on the Labour Party side, you've got quite a number of MPs there, lawmakers there, more than a dozen, who have talked about the need to get a deal and get one quickly because they are still concerned about what no deal would mean for their constituencies. I was talking just a moment ago to another Labour legislator here saying he thought that number was going to make it incredibly tight because if they vote alongside the government, then it will be difficult for opposition lawmakers to try and block this deal, as many of the other smaller parties, including the Scottish National Party, including the Liberal Democrats, hope to do. And then the other key people, of course, are those former Conservative lawmakers who've been kicked out of the party but are likely to vote with the government. Some of them have been pushing to get a deal through for almost a year now. It's unlikely they'll vote against the government. The final group is the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland. They are relatively on the fence at the moment. The statement from them last night after a long meeting with the Prime Minister, their leader, Arlene Foster, seemed to indicate they would try to vote for a deal if they felt it was in their interest. And there's obviously the possibility that a lot more money will come from the rest of the UK to Northern Ireland to try and sweeten that deal, as we saw when Theresa May struck a deal with them for a majority just over a year and a half ago. In terms of what this means on Saturday, if the Prime Minister can come back from a deal, as you mentioned, the Europeans sounding positive about that, it could be an incredibly tight vote whether to put that deal through. If they don't get that deal through, of course, we could see the Prime Minister being forced to ask for an extension. That might be a short one, though, guys, because it seems like it's all about the legal text at this point. They're getting very close to finding that compromise at last.
So very close to finding that compromise. That's Willem Markside with the latest on Brexit. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Macron are meeting today in France for their annual summit, a day ahead of the EU leaders gathering that will decide any potential Brexit withdrawal deal. If a deal is to be struck, it will need, at minimum, the blessing of the EU's two most powerful members. And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Reporter's Diary. Many thanks for watching, but stay tuned. Markets Today Talkback is up next with all the market action of the day. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18.
Brought to you by Lenovo. Smarter technology for all. Have a dream Diwali with Peps. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Accelerating next. And Bose, audio for life.
A market leader in facility management.
SIS. Digitization has increased the need for innovative methods to combat the evolving nature of new age risks. If you have proved your mettle in managing risks, log on to ForbesIndia.com/IRMA and nominate yourself today. ICICI Lombard and CNBC-TV18 present India Risk Management Award.